3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, hey.
Hello, my name is Bill Haley, and this is for Haley 2024 The Movement's Government Reform Ideas. Now this video is going to be on CRAs, Competitive Regulatory Agencies. Now this video is going to be describing how the constitutional amendment, the proposed constitutional amendment creating the CRAs, how that's all set up. We're going to do a quick overview, and we're going to have a concentration on CRAs. Now this is April of 2021. And between February through May of 2021, we're going to do a couple dozen videos. I already have a lot of videos out there from February and March, but we'll do probably a few more dozen videos through the end of April into May of 2021. Now, this is going more towards a free enterprise, limited government system, but if you want larger government, you can have that by having competitive governance. Within each geographic area, whether it's locality, whether it's state, or the full United States of America, you have a competitive governance. You pick which one you want to be governed by. So it's a brand new idea. Only a few things need to be monopolized governance. There's only a few things. A societal oversight role to make sure none of the competitive regulatory agencies are going to go outside of their boundaries, go and inhibit civil liberties and the like. So let's go through, because I've thought about a lot of things, and I think I covered all the areas. So let's start with the base, the CRAs. That's what this is right here. These are full governmental units: executive, legislative, and judicial. They govern, they regulate, and they send representatives up to the sector board level. Sector board level is right up here. Sector board is made up of representatives of the CRAs proportionally. So when you select your CRA, you give representation up to the CRA. You also, at the CRA level, send representatives to make up the parent sector board. The parent sector board is going to be more constitutionally minded to make sure this whole system is stays within the lines of the Constitution. They separate all the sectors out, and I haven't said that yet, but we have 30 distinct sectors. Education is different from military, that's different from the environmental protection, that's different from police and prisons. All these things will go through, but we separate all the sectors with distinct elected leadership per sector. You select a CRA per sector. So let's go through it. On the other side over here, you'll see a rating system. We're not going to get deep into the rating system now, but I will do a video on that rating system probably in late April. So we'll have that. Plus, it's all on my website. There's other videos on my website from about a year ago, but I refreshed and renewed and updated a lot of everything since a year ago. So let's keep on going through. The basic, here's about 15 sections of my Constitution. We have a preamble. It's not on this slide, but we have a preamble. It's really important. There's a video on that. It's everything's on my website as well. Citizenship is the first section. General laws. Every constitution needs this general laws, so I don't have to keep on repeating it within every of the sectors. We have bylaws. Basically, every organization, every executive department, every legislative department, every judicial department has to have a management, how it's run, and that's what that is: memberships and voting and the like. Federal, state, and local. How we separate the federal, state, and local. There's a lot to it. That's just one of the sections there. Original authority. That's more of a teaching sector. How we have law in the first place. How we have the authority to have law. Ownership and the like. Original authority says whether it's on the state level, federal level, local level, whether it's at the CRA level, whether it gets pushed up to the sector board level or the parent sector board level. There's a lot, it's very, very important section there. Supermajority, anything on a monopolized, any decision on a monopolized governance, which is a sector board level, it needs a supermajority of 70%. So we won't go a lot into monopolized. The parent sector board, we discussed that on the slide, and it's basically representatives of everybody within the jurisdiction from all the different sectors, from the CRAs from within all the sectors. So it's very important. The sector boards deal only with their sector. There's 30 of these. So they only deal with, let's say, labor law, or they deal with environmental protection, or insurance, or healthcare. With the money, we have 30. We break it down to 30 sectors. So we'll discuss those. The CRAs is what this video is going to be concentrating on. I'll probably do about an 8 to 10 minute review of this. I always try to give a review so we know where the concentration is per video of where it sits in the Constitution. So CRAs will discuss a lot of that, but that's where 99% of the governance is. Some of the regulations on a monopolized body, they'll push down to the CRAs, but on the most part, CRAs govern, they regulate, and then they send up representatives only when totally necessary. And again, needing 70%. The rating system is to give high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives. This has the same structure as a CRA structure. We'll get into a separate video on that. So it's very important, but it needs to, you have to fully understand how that is going to create a situation where we need a lot less monopolized governance, because we have high quality information given to all the people, so people can make their decisions based off standards. So if somebody has low environmental standards and creating negative externalities, you can punish them at the point of purchase by seeing their low ratings on environmental and they're polluting or whatever, and then they choose not to buy their product and they buy a more environmentally safe product. There's a lot to get into on that. I can't do it right here on this video, but I'll have a rating system video out there soon. The taxation, yes, we still have taxes, but it's going to go through each of your CRAs. All 30 sectors will be taxing. There's a lot to get into on that. That's not exactly 100% true, but there's a lot of truth to that. What I'm saying is there's small exceptions to that. There's taxations for the military, for example, for sales taxes, and there's taxes for the transition because we need to pay off the debt. We have a full system to pay off the debt. We have to fully transition. I just put out a video on transition, so it's very important how we go from the current system to the new system. And there's going to be a lot more videos on that, concentrating on each of the sectors. Debt. We have a massive debt in this country. We have to pay it off. We have to settle up the scores and figure out who owes what and how that's going to be divvied up. It's important that we do that because we're going too far down in the wrong direction right now. Pockets of freedom is an immigration and foreign policy that that'll have its own video, and we'll discuss that on those videos. States' partial acceptance per sector is an important aspect of the Constitution. It allows more states to pass this if they don't want to give up so much control from the current government to the CRA structure. I'll discuss that in that video. The separation of responsibilities and authorities, the list of 30 sectors. So we'll go over the 30 sectors once we go through the CRA slides. Now there's a lot of slides, a lot of clauses in the Constitution. I think it's over 500 clauses. It's quite large. I forget exactly how many, but it's quite large. About 1,300 words, 13,000 words. And I can probably get it down to 10,000 words because I repeat myself a little bit. I'm trying to make sure the reader of it realizes in every aspect how it's limited, what government can do, what government cannot do, what the sector boards cannot do, what the CRAs can do, and different things. Making sure the civil liberties are protected, making sure we have environmental controls. I try to cover all the different bases. So CRAs is competitive regulatory agencies. I'm going to call them CRAs, but recognize that they not only govern, they not only regulate, but they govern. And this is where the membership of each CRA sends representatives up to the sector boards and the parent sector boards. Let's go through this slides. And again, there's a lot of clauses within the Constitution relating to CRAs that I cannot get to within this one video. This is just a CRA section. But there's a lot of other clauses related to CRAs that the video would be 5 hours long if I tried to do it all in one video. I'm going to try to keep this below 1 hour. The CRA is a semi-private governmental organization consisting only of its members within the governed area. So, if I haven't said it yet, every current government, every local government, every state government, and the one federal government will have this complete structure. Not all state governments have this one structure and everybody goes together. No. Every government, every state government has this complete structure distinctively. And it says semi-private because they only govern their members. If I don't join a CRA, I join one. I have to join one. But the ones I didn't join, they have no power over me. They can send representatives up, and if they can get 70% saying that you are creating a negative externality through your CRA, then they can limit me by forcing my CRAs to govern and regulate in a certain way to stop me from infringing on their liberties, creating negative externalities. But it's private organization for that part. But if you have 5% of the citizens, you have 5% membership of the citizens, then you are a governmental organization as well, and that's where it becomes government. So let's keep on going. Every entity, and entity is a person, business, or organization, within this governed area must select and become a member of a CRA and RA rating agency in all 30 sectors of their local, their state, and their federal, and the federal CRA structures. So it's important to know that you have 90 memberships of the CRA, 90 members of the RA. That's 180 memberships. It's a lot, no doubt about it, but that it does not increase how much government power is over you. It divides it up and then puts it into 180 different organizations. So is that too many? I don't think so. I looked at it strongly. People can combine, states and locals and federal can combine. Different organizations from different sectors can join forces. There's a lot of ways to stop this from being so burdensome. And there's a way to have a one payment to go to every, and that one payment will be divvied up through your identity sector to supply everybody with their money, the votes, the everything that needs to happen. So it's not so overburdensome. But realize that the current government is regulating you on environmental protection. They're regulating you on education. The police, you have state, federal, and local police. You have state, local, and federal environmental protection. You have all the stuff, healthcare at the local level, federal level, state level. Everything's already being done. I'm not increasing that. Actually, you can have a lot less government in my system, or if you want more government, you can, because it's competitive. You select the CRA that you want to go with. So this is the main slide here. Every entity, every person, every business, every organization within the governed area of your locality, of your state, of your federal government selects and becomes a member, which means they're a paying member of a CRA and an RA in all 30 sectors. Of your local, that's 30. Of your state, 30 plus 30 is 60. And the federal, 30 more is 90. 90 CRAs, 90 RAs. No doubt about it, it's a lot. Let's keep on going. But it's dividing up power. Not 180 times the number of power, but dividing that up. And you can have more governance or less governance within the system. A CRA only governs its members within its sector's jurisdiction. So your education CRA cannot govern your environmental stuff. Your police CRA cannot govern your military stuff. Your charity CRA cannot govern your land and water sector. So they have to stay within their jurisdiction. But the CRA only governs its members. And members vote. Members of a CRA only vote for the leaders of that CRA. Not everybody in society votes for the leader of every CRA. You pick your CRA, you select it, and then within the membership, you select the leaders of that CRA. So if I choose a different CRA than my neighbor, they vote within their memberships of their CRA. I vote within the memberships of my CRA, and we have leadership. So most likely we're going to have a Heritage Foundation CRA, a Brookings Institute CRA, Republican Party, Democrat Party, Libertarian Party. We're going to have Green Parties. We're going to have a whole different split of ideas of how to run each one of the sectors. How do you run education? How do you run colleges? How do you run the police? Environmental protection, labor law, all that stuff. But everybody gets to choose how they're going to be governed. And then they only govern within their memberships. So important. A CRA is a semi-governmental organization. So I call it a semi-private organization because it only governs its members. But once you hit the 5%, they become government. A CRA is a semi-governmental organization that gains CRA authority by the membership of at least 5% of the governed area's entities. So important to understand. Once you have 5%, you become a governmental unit. Oh, it's still private to some degree, semi-private, semi-government. A sector board consists of several qualified CRAs. Well, it consists of the representatives. I might have changed this clause a little bit. Well, the other clauses will fill this in, I'm sorry. A sector board consists of several qualified CRAs. So roughly 12, because between 5% and 20%, you're going to get roughly 12 CRAs. So you pick the ones that you want. And most likely you're going to pick the ones that have your same philosophy. If you're more Republican or more Democrat, more Libertarian, more middle of the road, there's a lot. If you like Ted Cruz or Bernie Sanders or AOC or Hillary Clinton, you like Joe Biden or Trump or George W. Bush, each one of these might identify with a certain CRA, and you like them and you go with them. But then you get the good and the bad. You pay more taxes if you want more benefits. You want to do everything within the free enterprise system. You can do that and have a very small libertarian type of CRA. So let's keep on going. Non-American entities and Americans who have not yet signed a social contract, and we have a social contract, you have to sign it to be American, must become a CRA members in all 30 sectors. However, they may not vote. So if you're here, we legally allow you to be here, and you have not signed a CRA social contract, you're not a citizen yet, you still have to belong to CRAs. You have to abide by the rules of the land that you're in. And this is the rules of the land we're in. So we have a whole teaching on that. I'm not going to go deep into that, but I have a whole teaching on that. And that's the original authority and the citizenship videos I have out there. A CRA must have membership of at least 5% of all entities, properly weighted. I haven't got into the properly weighted, but when we talk about properly weighted, first of all, every citizen is going to be given authority to have representation. And that's going to be equal representation of every citizen. But then every business, if you're an organization or a business that's doing business and you are needing to get regulated by insurance companies, or let's say you're a bank, or let's say you're a police company, a business doing law enforcement, you are actually a business in society and you need representation as well. And your business gets representation. So properly weighted does give some businesses some representation. Now, the big things about whether we go to war or not, that's strictly citizens. There's clauses in there that does not allow businesses and the like to do some of the big things that we need to decide as a society. But membership of CRAs, it is properly weighted, and we can get into a whole nother video on properly weighted, and there's a lot to say on that. And I don't necessarily have a decision within the structure of what is properly weighted, but I do talk about it within the structure. Go back to the sector board videos and look at this within the sector board section, and it talks about properly weighted. It does give some constitutional authority for that, but then other authority has to be built out in law and within the bylaws. So there's a lot to that, and I don't want to get farther into that, or that's a large rabbit hole. A CRA must have membership of no more than 20% of all entities properly weighted. So it's important that we're not getting 30 and 40, 50 or 60% memberships. We don't want them monopolized. We don't want any group getting too big. Now, let's say the Republican Party or the Democrat Party, let's say they have 45% each. Well, you can split up into 3 different CRAs each, and they all cooperate well with each other. And say Democrat 1, Democrat 2, Democrat 3, Republican 1, Republican 2, Republican 3. You can do that. Highly doubtful, because Heritage Foundation is going to split off. Libertarians are going to split off the Republican Party. And Libertarians will split off the Democrat Party as well. Believe me, it's not an arm of the Republican Party by no means. But Green Party is going to split off the Democrat Party. It will not get above 20% easily. But it's a clause in here. Okay, an organization, we want to be able to organize across all sectors. We want organizations to be able to work well together. So what I have here is CRA Organizations, which means the organizations of CRAs across all the sectors and across different levels of government, federal, state, and local levels. And anyway, let me just read it. CRA Organizations, semicolon. If CRAs from 15 sectors become members of the same private organization, organized to group CRAs in all sectors, named CRA Organization, then the 5% minimum limitation is lowered to 2% for the other sectors for that CRA organization. CRA organizations may organize across the federal, state, and local levels of government. A state-level CRA may create a local-level CRA with a 2% minimum local membership limitations. So I don't want somebody let's say somebody really likes a state organization and they have 6 or 7%, but their locality doesn't get above that. It doesn't get above that 5%. Let's say they have 3 or 4%. I still want them to be able to be in that CRA at the local level. I want continuity. I want organizations out there that can span all the organizations. Now, don't get me wrong. That's not the only way they organize. Every CRA is going to want to have good cooperation with the other CRAs, even if they're not within the organization, just so they can work better. Because they want memberships. And with that membership comes better representation, more money, better power to do what you want to do. Your CRA is enhanced. A organization that has 16 or 17% is a much stronger organization than a CRA with 5 or 6% representation. But don't get me wrong. If you have 3 organizations with 6%, but they work closely together, that's fine. But and that's good. They have a little bit different way of looking at it, and they're going to work together. Now, there are going to be some CRAs not going to want to work well with others, but there's clauses outside of this section here that says you have to have full faith and credit. You have to work and cooperate with the other CRAs to some degree. There's rating floors. So we don't want a system where part of society gets pushed to the side, not able to work with the rest of society. It's part of the Constitution that you have to have cooperation. You have to choose to work together. So let's keep on going a little bit. Okay. All laws, regulations, bureaucracies, and governing occurs within CRAs. So you don't have any laws or regulations or bureaucracies outside of a CRA or governance. So CRAs is everything. Now, it doesn't have to be heavy government, but a CRA has to cover all the areas of current government. But let's say you have go into an education CRA, and they are just a very minor player, just making sure everybody gets a education without supplying the education. It's a very libertarian type of governance. Let's keep on going. Every CRA must become a member of a CRA in every sector. So all I'm saying is every CRA is going to have labor laws and stuff, so they need to connect with the labor law. Everyone will have to have police So they need to connect with the law enforcement. Every CRA is going to have banking, so they connect with the banking CRA. Every organization, every business, every entity has to belong to CRAs. The CRAs do also. Now, some will not be very relevant, and that's fine. They're very minorly regulated, but they have to be connected. And that connection is for representation. That's connection for when it is relevant. So everybody has to be regulated, even CRAs, because they are semi-private organizations. And every CRA must have a legislative branch, an executive branch, and the judicial branch. Now, I do have a judicial sector, and every judicial branch is within that judicial sector, because this judicial branch has to connect to a judicial CRA. So the judicial CRA, they're private organizations, they're free enterprise to a large degree, but they still have to belong and be regulated. We cannot be violating civil liberties. So everything is covered. We have societal oversight to cover. So free enterprise does not mean just do whatever you want, infringe on whatever rights you want of others, and just cause problems. No, this is a strictly regulated system. It can be lightly regulated or heavily regulated, but the only regulations monopolized is when you start becoming negative externality, significant negative externality. Now, I use the word significant because part of the preamble says you have to tolerate the freedom of others. So you're not always going to be able to say, you cannot infringe on my liberty at all. If you're playing some music, we have to allow somebody to play music. But there does get to be a point where the music is too loud and is disturbing the peace. And so we have a system within the structure to say when that toleration of others' liberties becomes too hard. So I'm going to do another video on that, strictly on within the rating system, on rating floors. That's where it's going to be regulated at. And rating floors are a rating that the CRA may not go below. You're creating too many negative externalities. Anyway, I'm going too many rabbit trails, and I'm going to do videos on the rating system. So let's keep on going. Members of a CRA vote on the leadership and representatives of the CRAs in all three branches. So they vote on the leadership of their CRA in the legislative, judicial, and executive branches of their CRA. Every CRA has all three. But then they also send representatives up to the sector board level and to the parent sector board. And the memberships send those representatives. They vote on the representatives of the sector board. So it's important to understand that the sector board is made up of representatives. They're not made up of people who go up to the sector board level with parent sector board and will power independently. All representatives come up from CRAs, and CRAs can pull that membership back or that representative back if they're going outside of what that CRA wants done, because CRAs represent the people that are the members. Right now, we should not be calling our congressmen House of Representatives because they're not representative. When you have 700,000 or 800,000 people, citizens within a congressional district right now, how can you be called a representative when you're representing a libertarian, a conservative, a Democrat, a Green Party member, people who want war, people who don't want war, people who want more welfare, people who want less welfare, people who want school choice, people who don't want school choice, people who want greater controls on the police, people who want greater amount of police out there with more power. How can you represent all the people? You can't. Representative is representing somebody's interests, their opinions, and you can't do that. My representative does not vote the way I want them to vote 99% of the time. So how are they representing me? But they're still called my representative. So it's a bad term. But when I go with like-minded people within a CRA, all conservatives or all liberals or all libertarians, however you want to describe yourself, you're first together with those libertarians or with those green parties or with them, and then you vote within your like-minded people the best representatives to come out of there to go up to the next level. But first, you vote for the representatives for your own CRA to govern you. So it's much more representative because you go first with like-minded people. You select your CRA based off of your philosophy of how you want to be governed in that sector. A CRA's CRAs proportionally staff their sector board and the parent sector board. So CRAs, they have power to staff their percentage of the sector. And hopefully not too much power is going to go up to the sector board or the parent sector board. But to make sure that you are good and representatives, they also staff proportionally. Because that's where the money is going to come from. They need to make sure they pay for their own staffing. A CRA may become socialist among other statist ideologies. However, a CRA never has the authority to tax, require funding, nor obligations from entities outside their CRA memberships. So, let's say a housing CRA, and it's not exactly a housing CRA, but a CRA that's over top of housing is, and that might be manufacturing, that might be another land and water, that I'm not sure which sector is going to be over housing right now. The parent sector board will make that decision, or maybe the decision will be made ahead of time. But one of those two, either land and water or manufacturing, will be over top of housing. And let's say that a CRA says we're going to tax everybody 10%, or let's say 15 or 20% of your income, and then we're going to supply a house to each one of our members. They can do that socialized housing if they wish to, just within housing CRAs. Or let's say we got a healthcare CRA. Actually, we have two healthcare CRAs, one for medicine, one for the rest of it. And if they want to say we're going to take 20% of your income or 10% of your income, however you want to do it, and we'll supply you with insurance, kind of like insurance is right now, but they'll supply you with healthcare, kind of like an insurance company is right now. They can do that. If you want to run that through your healthcare or run that through your insurance, there's a lot of ways it could be done. So, but what I'm trying to say is, if you want to join a statist organization, they cannot get taxes. They cannot govern outside of their membership. That means they cannot collect money from outside their memberships. So let's keep on going. Relevant clauses outside this section. So those are the CRA clauses. Now, I have a few clauses outside of that, but I also want to make sure you realize there's a lot of clauses within the Constitution that touches on CRAs that could be involved in this, but I don't want it to be a 5-hour-long video. Let's keep on going a little bit. But these are actual clauses. Representatives from all the CRAs within a sector proportionally make up the CRA sector board. So that was kind of in the other CRA section, but the sector board is made up of representatives of all the CRAs within that sector. Members proportionally make up or proportionally send legislative representatives. So this is not a vote of all the people within the jurisdiction. This is a vote for from within the memberships of a CRA. So let's say a certain CRA has membership of 10%. They send up 10% of the representatives. Now, if they want to send up one representative with 10% power, they can do that. Or if they want to send 10 representatives with 1% power per representatives, they can do that. There's a lot of ways that can be done. But that CRA gets 10% representation. Whether they send one person, 5 people, 10 people, altogether, they get 10%. And they send those legislators up there. Another CRA cannot stop another CRA from doing what they're going to do. They're going to send representation up there. And everybody gets to send their representatives. So it's not an overall vote. They don't get 10% of the vote on the representatives. They send 10% of the representatives up. So that's a significant change from our current system. Here another part, because localities are going to be sometimes as small as a few thousand people to a few, or maybe 100,000 people, and it's just not going to be enough for an executive and legislative seats. Those people are expensive, and we're not going to need a CRA to be able to have their own legislators sometimes, because sometimes you and another CRA are going to team up and send one legislator or add their legislative strength to a sector board or a parent sector board, because I take government down to such a small groups that sometimes it's not worth it. So they can send their own, but sometimes a CRA's official representative may add their representative strength to an existing legislator. So there's a lot to get into on that. I'm not going to get into it right now, but that's just to have cooperation, and so you don't have hundreds of thousands of people going up to the parent sector board, each one paying $100,000, $200,000. You can join together and get a good law professor type of guy that you really like, that agrees with you, and people can put their money towards that one, and that person can be full-time, really making sure everything's staying together, versus there's a lot of ways they can do it, but this allows them to add their existing strength to an existing legislator that they agree with. Members of CRAs must elect a top executive leader to a CRA sector board. Now, this one they have to vote within the whole jurisdiction, the whole sector, all the CRAs together. But if you have 10%, you send up your results from your 10%. So within your CRA, you vote. And then you send up what your results are to the sector board. So if you're trying to elect a top leader, a president, a governor, a mayor, I know mayors can be different things in different localities and be configured a little bit differently, but the top executive leader, whether it's the police chief or the law enforcement, or whether it's the governor, and this is within each sector, by the way. This guy's not going to be over top of EPA and the police at the same time. They're not going to be over top of education and insurance at the same time. This is at all three levels of government. They do it distinctly. But your CRA sends their results up. Everybody else's CRA sends their results up. Every CRA will have a percentage already set in stone. The sector board decides what percentage every CRA has by very well-established rules of who's a citizen, who's not a citizen, and what their percentage is. That is set at the sector board level. The parent sector board sets the bylaws, and once that is decided, every CRA has a percentage, and they send that vote up. So you do get a top elected leader. Now, I know that the supermajority says that anything at the sector board level has to have a 70%. Well, there is a way, because we do need a must elect. Anytime there's a must in here, we have a multi-level voting system. So if you can't get up to 70% vote for one person to be your top leader, then you can have a way where it's less than 70%. And I'll go over that on the supermajority video, which is no, I don't think I've done that yet. We'll have that video out there. CRAs must proportionally send judicial officials to the sector board. Proportionally means if you have 10%, you send up 10% of the judges, period. If one of your judges retires, passes away, or whatever, or no longer in there, that CRA always has their 10%. They can pull back a judge, and let's say they don't like the way they're ruling, it's not within their philosophy of their CRA, then they can pull them back, and another CRA, the CRA sends another judicial officer up there. So judicial official, judge, justice, whatever. And I do have something that's going to be almost the equivalent of the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court's power is being divided significantly because we have a lot of different representative bodies. So I do have something like the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court has way too much power right now, and this whole idea is about separating the powers significantly. A CRA's official representatives may add their representative strength to an existing judicial official. Again, because we have such small groups that we're going to get down to, especially in the localities in the smaller states, that if they need to combine their strength, they can, because it's not economical to have so many judges up there, and you pick one that you like that has that same judicial philosophy. So there's a lot to get into on that, but it gives them that option. Obviously, that says may, and which means they always have the authority to send up their own. Okay. CRAs must proportionally send legislative representatives to create the parent sector board. So everything we just talked about on the sector board level, they do the same thing at the parent sector board. And the sector board is significantly different than the parent sector board. And the parent sector board doesn't have authority over the sector board. That's not, if you look at that one slide, it was not a parent sector board going down to the sector board, going down to the CRAs. It's CRAs sending representatives up to the sector board, and CRA sending representatives up to the parent sector board. Two separate organizations, and they have two different things. Parent sector board decides the separation between the sectors. So they'll talk to them and say, this sector is, jurisdiction is around these set of lines. And so the sector board will be communicating with them, but it's basically going down to the CRA level and then back up to the sector board level. And again, if this is all new, you're going to have to really look throughout my website to see the structure and see how it's structured. Members of CRAs must elect a top executive to the parent sector board. So same thing with the sector board. I'm not going to keep on going over that. CRAs must proportionally send judicial officials to the parent sector board. And yes, there is a judicial sector board on the parent side, on the parent sector board level. They still need to make decisions on that. And guess what? Everything we just described is within the rating system as well. They're not going to have, because we separate a little bit of powers. We 75-80% of the power is going to go on the CRA side, but 10-15%, however you want to look at it, and it'd be an argument about how much power they have, but it's also how much it's divided up. But it's not divided up by regulations. Regulations are on the CRA side. Rating floors and the structure of information is on the other side. And rating agencies have some power. Don't get me wrong. They have some official power. CRAs must proportionally staff all three branches of the parent sector board. So just like the sector board, the parent sector board is staffed up. There's not going to be a lot of staff up there. There's not going to be a ton of staff on the parent sector board. Judicially minded people who are law professors and top legal scholars are going to be sitting on that, but without a ton of power. And if they can say, they cannot regulate. They can say the insurance company has its regulations versus the financial sector. The diplomats have this power versus the commander-in-chief. They'll make those decisions. They'll get those lines done, but they don't have commander-in-chief power. They don't have diplomat power, but they do have the power to say it's within the diplomatic sector or the commander-in-chief sector. It's in the insurance sector or the financial sector. And no, financial and insurance can be very closely related. They have different responsibilities, and there will be a clear line of delineation. And the parent sector board will continuously, over the years, over the decades, will fine-tune that line. But is it really that big of a difference if you go with the organization, let's say the Heritage Foundation or the Brookings Institute? They're going to say, I don't care whether it's in the financial or the insurance, we have the same philosophy anyway. Most of my members, Heritage Foundation members, are going to be in the same Heritage Foundation insurance CRA as the financial CRA. And they're going to work together, so it doesn't really matter. But there still needs to be a nice delineation. And there will be those battles, and that's part of the checks and balance system. But in no way, shape, or form does the parent sector board have the authority to regulate sector, financial or insurance. It just says who does. Let's keep on going. CRAs must fund their representatives and staff their parent sector board. So that's important to understand, that they staff and fund their percentage. And if one CRA wants to pay their representatives and their staff hundreds of thousands of dollars, another one $50,000 each. You're going to get what you pay for, people. And people getting paid $200,000, if you get high quality people, if you use that money wisely and really hire a really high quality person, you can get a lot better representation than somebody getting paid $50,000. But it might be a $50,000 part-time job for a law professor or somebody that, because they don't have a lot to do. It's a lot to get into. People worth and dollars, that there will always be arguments, and that's why this clause is in there, so different CRAs can do it different ways. The rating agencies is structured the same as a CRA. I just said it a little while ago, but everything you saw here, that whole structure, is on the rating system side, mirror image of it over on the rating system side. I say mirror image, it's not reversed. It's just the same structure is on the rating system side as the CRA side. And both of them together is a CRA structure. But got the CRA side, rating system side, exact same setup. Every entity must pay the fee of their memberships for their CRA in every sector. So this is on the taxation side. I'm going to have a full video on taxes. I haven't done it quite yet. I'll have it done probably by late April. And every entity pays their fee. Every CRA will have a different fee structure. Some will be higher fee, trying to give more benefits. Other ones will be lower fees. Some will do the, let's say some will just regulate law enforcement businesses, and you have a contract with the law enforcement business. You pay them directly, and that law enforcement business is regulated by your CRA, law enforcement CRA, and you pay that law enforcement CRA just a little bit to regulate, but a lot to the law enforcement business. Another CRA, law enforcement CRA, might say, I'm going to do it all within in-house. A socialist, if you will, law enforcement CRA, and you don't pay for a law enforcement business because it's done at the CRA level. So one will have a lot of expense at the CRA level, the socialist one, and one will have little expense at the CRA level, but they'll also have to pay for it, a law enforcement contract underneath them. So you're both paying for law enforcement, but one's through the CRA, one's through private business, regulated mildly by the CRA. So let's keep on going. All CRAs set their own membership fees. So it's important to understand you are governed, and governing is taxation as well. Fees, taxation, however you want to look at it. Sometimes it's more in the definition of taxes, some more in the definition of fees, some more in the definition of user fees, however you want to look at it. There's a lot of ways to look at it. So here's that screen again. I want everybody to understand that we are getting to the we want to go to a competitive governance system. Or at least I do. That's what I'm proposing here. And let's go through that. We got all, here's the 30 sectors. 5 in the charity system, 5 in the foreign protection system, 5 in the violent crime mitigation system. Everything going free enterprise. Here's your 15 other sectors. Let's go through each one. I'm going to try to keep this under 1 hour. Got about 12 minutes left. We got charities. All government, first of all, let me just say it right off the bat. Let me go back to here. All government functions stop after the 5-year transition. The current government. It goes to a CRA in each one. Your CRA governs you. Everything's going to free enterprise. If you want governance, socialized governance, you go to a CRA that does that for you, and you pay higher fees. Lower fees if you want to have the governance only mildly there and overseeing your private sector law enforcement. So however you want to do it, you can do it. But everything that government's currently doing will go free enterprise. Now that free enterprise does not mean do as you will. It does not mean infringe on liberties. We have two major societal oversight roles for anybody with governmental powers. If you have law enforcement, prison, guards, whether you have a military, anybody with inherent government power, you're a commander of aircraft carrier, you have to get approved. You're a prison guard, you have to get approved. A law enforcement officer, get approved. Prosecutor or judge, you have to be approved. every person in the military approved. Every person in the commander-in-chief section, you have to be approved. So let's go through this real quick. And when we sell off all of the assets the government currently owns, every land, every naval base, everything in the military, every NASA asset, every school building, every road, every hospital that's publicly owned or partly publicly owned, every college that's publicly owned. When we start selling this stuff off, we're gonna be able to pay off a significant amount of debt, and we'll have a debt section. And it was part of my transition video I did recently. So we have all 30 sectors here. Let's go through each sector. So we get rid of all government welfare altogether. We split that power into the charities. That's where the help actually happens. Charitable Distribution Association, that's where the funding mechanism comes. Everybody has to give money towards that. It's a mandatory. When you sign your social contract, you have to give roughly 5% of your income, and altogether that's 5% of GDP. Businesses do it as well, and there's a whole system surrounding that. So every local level, state level, and the federal level will collect money through their CDAs. That's the CRAs for this sector. And then the case management system is going to be charity assessor organizations. They case manage. And those three groups working closely together is so important. Then obviously it's going to work within family law, because family is always the first line of defense against need. And then religion, that's to fight for religious liberty, and it's also going to be involved in helping the poor. Foreign protection system, the president that is currently commander-in-chief, that's going to be separated power. The commander-in-chief is going to be separated from the guy who's top diplomat. There are two different sectors there. And all the legislators, people who vote to go to war, is different than the people who vote to handle commander-in-chief related stuff. Then the military corporations, that's going to be significantly going to the free enterprise system. We do have a tax, so collecting the money is not going to be free enterprise, but how it's distributed through the military capability system, Sector 9, that's going to be done off capabilities. So there's going to be significant free enterprise benefits in that, because we're going to have private sector corporations deciding on their own what assets to bring into play to give military capabilities to America. And so that's a full nother sector. We're doing a full video on that alone, but that's super important to understand that. So this video is going to be on CRAs, and it's hard for me to get into CRAs on every single one of these. But Military Authorization Agency, that's the societal oversight. Representatives of 70% of the citizens of each locality, each state, and mostly on this full thing is federal to a large degree. And that's where the original authority is on this on these 5 sectors here. Anyway, representatives of 70% of the people have to agree that anybody in the military has power. Each individual person has power, from the top commander-in-chief to the commander of the aircraft carrier to lowest private in one of the military corporations. So anyway, let's go on to the next one. I will have a full video on all this. Violent crime mitigation system, defining violent crime, and the prosecutors, and there's a lot involved in here. You pick who you want your prosecutors to be, who you want to run the judicial department, and it's different than the court. These are the prosecutors. These are the defining violent crimes. There's a lot into that, and I don't have time to get into all these things. Everyone's a massive rabbit hole, and I have a video on every one of these sectors, and then the violent crime mitigation system altogether. Anyway, you have private sector courts, private sector prisons, but the law enforcement authorization is similar to the authorization sector for the military. Anybody with inherent government power, a law enforcement officer, a guard, a prison guard, a judge, a prosecutor. There's a lot of people with inherent government power They have to get approval from representatives of 70% of the people. Highly important to understand that. Healthcare is split up into two sectors. You pick which one. I got a lot to say on this sector, on these sectors, but they'll have their own videos. Financial is broken down into two sectors. One being strictly banking, and we go free enterprise banking. I have a full switch over to a free enterprise banking. Competitive governance, competitive currencies with one standard. I have a full system on that. It's very easy to understand, but I don't have time on this video for that. Insurance will have CRAs. How do you want? Now, most of the people, now on all these, 99% of the relevance on this is going to be healthcare businesses picking their CRA. Healthcare businesses for pharmaceuticals picking their CRAs for medicines. Banks picking their CRAs to govern their bank. Insurance companies picking their CRAs to govern their insurance regulations. You, as a consumer of insurance product or of banking, of the consumer being a patient or whatever, the consumer of healthcare services will pick a healthcare provider, a bank, a insurance company that you like because you like their CRA. And if a CRA has all the regulations just to support or in favor of the healthcare provider, or in favor of the bank, or in favor of the insurance company, you're not going to go to that bank. But on the other hand, if a CRA has a regulation that every time there's a dispute, the consumer wins, well, the company's not going to be able to make money, so they're not going to go with that. So it's going to bring together the it's going to stop the extremes of too much in favor of the company or too much in favor of the consumer. It's going to give that nice balance, because people will change what banks they use, the hospitals they use, the healthcare provider, their insurance companies they use. Let's keep on going. Food and education, total free enterprise education, unless you want a socialized education, which 85% of the people are currently in socialized education. Once we get more of the sector board, I'm sure it'll be less than 50% that want socialized education, but you can do that. But remember, they cannot tax outside of their sector or their CRA. They cannot tax outside their CRA. Membership. If they're going to give you education, membership's going to pay for it. If you want to just have a libertarian type, the CRA is going to be mild regulations over top of the schools that you want to join, and you pay for your services. If you want to get a student loan, we have something called a share loan that takes a percentage of your income for life or for a certain number of years, depending on what your contract wants to be. So I have a share loans that are highly important within this full financial structure, whether it's in banking, insurance, the charity system, the charity economy. There's a lot to it, and how that's going to relate. Manufacturing obviously has to be regulated, but we definitely don't need monopolized regulations. And what that's going to incorporate, I don't know right now. That's not my department necessarily. That's going to be over a ton of the regulations, though. If it's not the healthcare, if it's not the food, it's not healthcare, financial, banking, then most of it's going to fall underneath the manufacturing. Human resources and sales, that's obviously labor laws, general sales out there, retail sales and wholesale, but that's going to be a taxing sector as well, because the military needs its money. It is a 5% sales tax to meet the 5% of GDP. It's going to go towards the foreign protection system. Identity sector is going to be super important. Their CRAs are going to do all the voting, in charge of all the elections. That CRA is going to be in charge of so much of ownership, of citizenship, and the like. So it's a very, very important sector. Maybe not a lot of dollars going through there, but a lot of really important governmental services going through there. And believe me, there's a lot of services that can be worked through within that, and very important governmental services, IDs and stuff. environmental EPA type of services. That's a separate sector because it's so important. Work safe, and believe me, the rating system and the rating floors are going to play a huge role in the environment, and it's going to create so much a better environment than we currently have right now. Our monopolized regulations is really not the best way to handle environment. Competitive governance, competitive regulations with rating floors, and people knowing your environmental standards are so important. Transportation, so important to understand how transportation works. Full free enterprise roads, private sector roads, a transponder system. We have a certain number of things going up to the sector board level, but most of it's going to be a mandate to cooperate. So we have good intersections, public spaces. There's parts of the clauses within this create public spaces. All roads, or at least the current public roads, are public spaces still. There's a lot of private roads within America that can stay private. No, that doesn't have to change. They have to still go to a transportation CRA, but only the public roads that we almost everybody knows about and uses on a normal basis. That's free enterprise, people. That you need to go free enterprise on that. Media and communication. That's going to be a little bit of a collect-all for if you don't see it within the within these 30 sectors, it's most likely going to be falling into a sector like this. Land and water, very important. That's going to be quality of life issues. That's going to be not so much environment because we have that separated out, but that's going to take on to a lot of governmental functions. A lot of that's going to be shoved down to the local level, and even sometimes the business area or homeowner association or something like that. So you can have small groups with a greater control of their block, their homeowner association, their small areas. We're talking hundreds of houses or even 50 or 60 houses. It can have a certain governmental function, and obviously, when you get down to a small group like that, you're going to have to hire a outside group that manages many places like that, so you can get the finances to work out. Anyway, a long video, I totally understand that, and everything is easy to find on Haley 2024. I have a lot more to say on that, on CRAs alone, but this whole system is built around CRAs. The parent sector board, the sector boards, they're all made to make the CRAs better. The rating system is to make the CRA system better because you have high quality information. So there's a lot to understand, and keep on looking at my videos. Please consider a donation to Haley 2024, the movement. Right now I'm trying to do all this on my own, and I would love to have some support to hire somebody to do some social media and to help edit some of the things I'm doing and try to get this out there in the realm of ideas. So, until the next video.